The Spin-Off Podcast Network.
Raising capital or taking your business to the world? Investment Fix has everything you need to make it happen. This season, we're exploring the US market, the opportunities it offers, what it takes to grow a business there, and the best way to approach investors. The Investment Fix podcast. Tune in today.
The Fold is brought to you by oMedia, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Kia ora and welcome to The Fold. I'm so pumped about this episode, which feels weird to say only because I literally had no idea who my subjects were 24 hours ago. Their names are Angelina, Favero and Rachel Zhou. They're both Year 13 students at Queen Margaret College in Wellington, and they are amazing. Like, genuinely kind of blow my mind. And I think you'll get a lot out of this interview. They basically, when they were in their early teens, started a sort of like a non-profit social enterprise called Find Your Fire to encourage youth to make a change in their community. And from there, decided that if they wanted to get people motivated, they needed to talk to them about issues that they saw as impacting the world. And so rather than, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of ways you could go about that, right? But what they did was start a print magazine. And, as someone who has edited and published print magazines, that's not a small undertaking. It's very costly. It's very time consuming. It's just all kinds of different hard. It's also, not what you imagine teenagers doing for so many reasons, ranging from magazines have, some kind of sense of being an outmoded means of distribution to, social media being the primary media, and they discussed that on this. But they started this magazine, they got funding for it, they wrote it, they taught themselves how to design, and they distributed it to every high school in New Zealand. And I've read it. It is tightly put together. It is in their voice, and that's something that they talk about. It does feel of a piece with what Lucy and Shit You Should Care About do, obviously on a much bigger and kind of more global scale, and they sort of specifically mentioned that account as being something that informed this. And there's something quite beautiful about this whole, what feels almost like an alternative startup media network that's been formed completely outside of the kind of system of which, Stuff and the Herald and ultimately the Spin-Off are a part. They've done 2 issues of it, and they're in the planning stages of a 3rd and a 4th. They're really, really fired up. They're super enthusiastic and motivated, and the pair of them seem like they're just sort of built to overcome anything. It's a lot, and it's also like exhausting. Just the idea of getting through high school was more than enough for me, and yet here they are just casually self-publishing magazines and distributing the link to the country. Yeah, so we talk about that. We talk about the media consumption, the values of teenagers, about the kind of barriers to it, both, fiscal and, in terms of people staring them down and saying, stick to your homework kind of thing. They're just amazing, inspiring pair, and I'm certain that you will hear more from them. The Fold is, as always, brought to you by Vodafone. With innovation made simple and world-class network technology, Vodafone will help maximize the potential of you and your business. Find out more at vodafone.co.nz. This is Angelina and Rachel from imPower on The Fold. Kia ora, Angie and Rachel, and welcome to The Fold.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My first big burning question is... I don't take this the wrong way, but why'd you start a print magazine in 2021 as teenagers? That's so interesting to me because I'm like a print tragic. I subscribe to a bunch of magazines, but I'm 41 years old and from a very, very different generation. Talk you through your thinking behind imPower.
Yeah. So, the reason we wanted to create a print magazine was because we know there are students out there in New Zealand who can't afford to have a laptop or to look at things online. And so we wanted this magazine the magazines to be accessible to everyone. And so to have hard copies in schools was kind of the aim, just to have it, available for everyone.
And especially now in like the digital age, so many people are just always attracted to like their laptops, their phones, and we thought it would be like nice to have this resource just in front of you and like accessible and to everyone.
That's so cool. But obviously it's also like it's a massive challenge. There's so many layers to it because, if you're doing a kind of an activism or trying to reach people through social media, on some level it's a 30-second process setting up your distribution channel. A lot of work besides, and I don't mean to belittle that, but a print magazine requires designers, requires printers, requires distribution, requires funding on a major scale.
Yeah.
You're also like, these things are 30 pages long. There's a lot of copy in them. Talk me through the process of getting from here's our big idea to this thing is in schools around New Zealand. Is that right?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Okay, so basically we started our first magazine actually in year 10, and for school we would set up a community project. So basically students were required, like big or small, to embark on like a project of any kind really. And at that stage, we were like, we didn't really know what we were going to do. But like after like looking at the news and Angie...
and my mum worked at ACC and she was looking at the family harm statistics and was sharing them with me. And I was like, wow, I never knew that family harm was such a huge issue in New Zealand. And I think we have one of the highest rates of family harm in the developed world. And so we realised, that's a topic that we want to focus on.
And we were wondering like how we were going to make this impact. And like after brainstorming so many ideas, we like set it on a magazine. So I thought it was quite an authentic way to like get to our readers. And especially now, of course, in the digital age where everything's just online, there's so much information to consume. We just wanted like a resource people could easily like pull out and just read.
Yeah. So in order to start writing, there was actually not that much information online. So we had to do a lot of interviews. We interviewed some counsellors and then we wrote the magazine. I think we spent a few days straight just writing and editing. And what was really important when we wrote was to make sure it was our voice coming through. It wasn't some sort of like research article from the internet. It was students speaking to students. And so... Yeah, and then after that began the designing process.
And like at that stage, we were 13 and none of us had any of the skills. We didn't really know how to write formally, didn't know how to present and become like have an engaging resource for our audience. And designing especially, we had to learn that all from scratch. So Angie and I were starting to use InDesign, which we thought was like a really good like designing program, and we had to really learn that all from nothing.
We did initially try to get a designer online, and so we got the design back from them, and it didn't quite meet our vision for what we wanted the magazine to be. So we had two options: just suck it up and stick with that magazine, or to redesign it ourselves. And so we chose redesign it ourselves, and that's when we learned how to use the designing software. And then after that, what's next? Money.
How do you pay for it?
Yes, money. So I think for the first magazine, we were very fortunate to have ACC on board straight away because they had a portfolio for family harm. And so they were able to sponsor us. And then we have some amazing people at Fuji Xerox who have partnered with us for our first magazine and our second magazine. And so they print the magazine for free, and ACC provided the money
for distribution,
for paper and distribution.
Yeah.
For our second magazine, it was a bit more of a challenge. I do think I emailed most businesses that are in New Zealand to get funding, but we just kept emailing until we got some yeses, and we were able to get money for paper and distribution. But it was definitely a longer process for the second magazine.
Honestly, I'm just exhausted just thinking about it. What has been the response to it, and how many copies did you distribute, and just talk me through after the process of creation, how did it land?
So basically for the first magazine, I think we printed about a couple of thousand.
Yeah, a couple thousand.
Yeah, and we wanted that. I think we gave like 2 or 3 magazines to every secondary school in New Zealand. And we really wanted it to be in libraries or just as a resource in classrooms or counsellors. And since then, we've gotten, through our email, we've gotten like quite a few like schools coming back for more.
Yeah.
Or just like counsellors saying like how great of a resource it is for students.
Yeah, and same for our second magazine. We also, I think we printed a couple thousand, sent that to the secondary schools across New Zealand, and from that one also, we also got requests for more magazines and teachers saying that they would use it in class, and we even had a student who used it in class email us about it, and so that was really, gratifying and really cool to know that students are using it and finding it to be a useful resource.
So what's the... I mean, you've talked through the idea of the magazine as the format, and I think you made the case quite well. But just describe the way that you consume media, and like you said, there was this this sort of research phase and finding that there wasn't actually a lot on these topics for you. Like, What is the typical way that you and your peer group kind of consume media in the broader sense of the word?
Yeah, I think our generation, a lot of the time now we get a lot of information from social media. There are amazing accounts that do post current events, and I think that's how a lot of our peers get information rather than watching the news. And I think that's something we actually do want to branch out to start doing, is having this available through social media as well. But I think we're also quite attracted to having things that are hard copy. I don't know if you've heard of like the Frankie magazines. Yeah, I think that's something that my generation is quite interested in, just because of the appeal, just how it looks. And that's something that we would pick up and we would have a read. And I think that's sort of the aesthetic we were going towards when we made this magazine, to make so it was something that another student like us would pick up and wouldn't feel sort of ashamed of picking up and reading. They would, it's something cool to have and to read.
And just like, I feel like no one really wants to be reading a report or even like a news article when you're just scrolling through like tons of like words and just like reading. And we want something like they can easily pick up, like big facts or stats that you can, Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think, a lot of the time social media
is our main source of information.
Yeah, which I guess there is the argument that it might be slightly unreliable, but I think there is a huge move towards having reliable facts out there from some really incredible accounts.
What are some of the accounts that you appreciate, that you follow and feel like they do a good job of speaking to your generation in a way that... I mean, because I think that insight you have around, like, it should feel like you're the tone of voice and the feeling like it's someone speaking to you in a way that it's not, it doesn't have that kind of top-down feel. There are some accounts that you think do it very well?
Yeah, there's I know one that comes to mind. I don't know if I could say it because it has the S word in it.
I think I know what you're going to say.
It's New Zealand based.
Right? Yeah, run by New Zealand. Yeah, I think that one's a really, really fabulous account. And the graphics are incredible. And I think the posts are to the point. And I think that's something our generation really appreciates. We don't want to be reading these long articles. We want something that's to the point, tells us what's going on, where it's going on, and how we can help.
Another one, a good one, is Impact. Impact. When you just scroll through their feed, it's really visually appealing, and it covers like a broad range of issues. And it helps us get real informed about every type of issue, really.
The Fold is brought to you by O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa, with over 4,000 out-of-home advertising sites nationwide across both street furniture and retail centres. I'm super grateful to O Media for enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
Raising capital or taking your business to the world? Investment Fix has the lowdown on everything you need to make it happen. This season, we're exploring the US market, the opportunities it offers, what it takes to grow a business there, and the best way to approach investors. Join some of the superstars of the investment and business world as they share advice from their time in the US so you can make your mahi count in this massive market. The Investment Fix podcast, brought to you by Invest New Zealand. Tune in today.
Do you feel like there's a tension between obviously with social media and those accounts that you describe, a lot of the time the issues that they're talking about are global.
Yes.
And if you look at your current issue with its focus on modern slavery, which is tremendously important, but and I think you've done a great job with covering it. But is there a tension between a kind of a global outlook and versus like quality information sources that speak to a local community? As you said before, there's the family harm statistics for New Zealand, might be something that you would miss if you're following international-based social accounts, but that are inevitably focusing on global issues or issues that are predominant in another part of the world.
No, I think you do make a good point about that. And I don't think that's something I've really thought about. But yeah, I think when you do look at such accounts, because it covers global news, you do see a lot of things from, say, America and Europe. There are things about New Zealand, but I guess relative to what's going on in the rest of the world, we kind of seem like a minority in a way.
It actually seem pretty well off, actually, because I feel like whenever New Zealand is presented in the media,
it's in a positive light.
Yeah,
and I do think there is a lack in media of, I guess, accounts, places that just share New Zealand, solely just New Zealand news and things that are going on in our country, and maybe painting it in more of a real light, not a, I guess, a very perfect world. It's, showing the raw stuff that's going on.
Because I feel like even now, like if you like scroll through the comments on posts, like you see, I feel like most people do regard New Zealand as like some sort of utopia.
Yeah, like a nice little oasis island.
Yeah, and New Zealanders feel quite influenced and proud, I guess.
Yeah.
At the same time, they don't realise the issues that we are battling in the country.
Yeah. And I think that's why when we saw the family harm statistics, that was such a surprise to us. Because living in New Zealand, we feel so privileged, and I still feel very privileged to live here because our country is absolutely awesome. But I think sometimes we do overlook the problems that we have and get quite wrapped up in the problems in other countries.
Mm.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me, and I think it's so true that because of our response to the pandemic, because we have this young woman prime minister, who's had, been pregnant, had a baby while, not long after being elected, there is some sense that we've become this kind of cute little meme country that doesn't really bear much scrutiny. And New Zealanders are understandably and in some ways rightly very proud of that, but it can feel like, and even this whole team of 5 million thing, like if you are to scratch the surface and point at the things that aren't really working here, there is, you're some kind of traitor to the team. Do you feel like amongst your generation there is a, do you feel like they sort of buy into the kind of, or defend that image of New Zealand, or are they more kind of conscious of the realities? And obviously, like, this is a generation, there's lots of different kinds of people represented, but if you're speaking broadly, do the realities of the complexities of New Zealand come through, amongst your peers, do you think?
I think it really depends on the issue, to be honest. Like, especially for climate change, of course, New Zealand is a small country in comparison to everyone else. And obviously we wouldn't probably have such a large environmental impact. And it seems like everyone in our generation is very passionate about maintaining our climate. But like in terms of family harm and modern slavery, it's definitely not an issue that our generation is very much aware of.
But I do feel like, I think I've said this before, I feel like our generation has a little bit of a spark or a unique sort of drive where we are really keen to make some sort of impact and I guess almost test the stereotypes and test the boundaries. And I think, yes, in a way we are slightly under the influence of this sort of perfect New Zealand team of 5 million idea, but I think we are heading towards,
becoming more aware.
Becoming more aware of what's happening.
Mm.
Have you found since, you've talked about your intended audience, but whenever you do something like this, I feel like, there is a sense that sometimes, the There is a group of New Zealanders, broadly speaking, who it feels like they're really interested in what teenagers are doing and kind of rooting for them to. And there's multiple examples of New Zealand teenagers from Lord to Lydia Ko to Benny to you name them, who've done crazy world-shaking stuff. And then but there's also a group who are like, just be kids.
Yep.
Don't worry about this stuff. Do your homework and keep quiet.
Oh yeah, we've definitely come across those people.
Have you experienced that?
Yeah, definitely. I think when we started our first magazine and we just proposed the idea, we definitely got a lot of strange looks and sort of remarks from people who were just adults who were just wondering, why we wanted to tackle such a huge issue. Yeah. And I guess that is that right there is the reason why we want to, is because people and adults are afraid to talk about such topics. And if we keep being afraid, then our generation, future generations aren't going to be educated about such issues if we just kind of keep brushing it away. But yeah, we've definitely come across those people.
And I guess that's why it's been so hard, especially for the second magazine, to find sponsorship. Because it's hard to have people, adults especially, to take us seriously as teenagers. Yeah.
And I mean, does that weigh on you, or does it kind of just? You seem like quite determined types. Yeah. Like I can imagine it's just fuel.
Yeah, it really is fuel. Keeps us motivated, but definitely makes it more of a challenge. But yeah. No, we're determined to reach the end goal regardless of what stands in our way.
So what is the end goal? Where would you like to see, this end up in a dream state?
Yeah, I mean, ideally we'd just like to continue with the magazine series. We've got the body image one coming up next. We're really keen to maybe focus on mental health. It's a biggie, but I think that's a topic that I think resonates with a lot of our generation. And yeah, the second one, the third magazine, we want to take global if possible,
while still maintaining, I guess, a very New Zealand focus, especially within New Zealand. I don't know. I feel like we want to have a New Zealand version and a global version at the same time.
Keep it something that's special to Aotearoa.
Yeah.
But have it globally as well. And then, if possible, we'd really love to have a website and to have these available online, just so people across the globe can access the first and second magazines. And I guess people who maybe don't go to school, because there would be readers who don't attend school but might want to read the magazines. So I think, that would be awesome, having a nice magazine series, hard copy, some across the globe and online.
So do you consider yourselves journalists, and is journalism or publishing, is there something, I mean, you're coming towards the end of your schooling, right? Does this feel like you just got into your career when you were 13 and it's sailing on from there, or is this, where to next?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is something that we really enjoy, and I don't think we can see our future without it. I don't think anything to do with journalism is something that we ever delved into before starting the magazine, but it was something we ended up really enjoying. And I definitely see keeping up with our magazines in our future. I mean, I don't know exactly what we'd be doing, profession-wise, but it's definitely like a part-time job that I don't think we'd be giving up. Like a hobby and a part-time job mixed together in a way.
That was The Fold, brought to you by our partners at oOh!media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Huge thanks to oOh!media for sponsoring this episode of The Fold and enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today. The Spin-off Podcast Network.